What's going on, people? It's your boy Malik Washington. How's everyone doing? We're going to dive right on into the topic today. And today is going to be regarding Queen Elizabeth II, the crown, or shall I say the monarchy, the Africans and their resentment towards the Queen, as well as talk a little bit about reparations. I think that this is an important topic because, as many of you all know, Queen Elizabeth II passed away, right? And of course, the news purports that the world is mourning over the Queen, which that's not an obviously it's an exaggeration and an oversimplification of everyone's emotions, because clearly not everyone is in relation to the Queen. Not everyone has any dealings with her. Not everyone has dealings with her. So naturally, we're not all mourning over her, but we do. Some of us, in respect to people dying, we do give condolences to the royal family for the fact that, that they had a grandmother and a mother and an aunt who passed away. However, let us also understand that not everyone in the world is going to like and love this queen, right? As people wouldn't like and love everybody in this world. Just as we may like and love some people, there will be people who will feel the exact opposite, and for good reason, and to a degree bad reason. For good reason is that the English crown, or shall I say the power behind the throne, is not exactly immaculate as far as it comes to establishing dominance and sovereignty over a nation. No nation, whether if they were black or white indifference, is imperfect as far as establishing peace and order in a country, and even civility, as many of us would like to argue when we do establish not colonies, but nations. We like to think that we are righteously better than others, and that we are the saviors of the world, and that everyone wants to be and look like us and act like us. And we think that if we exert our authority over everyone, then they will essentially in turn give us all of their complete submission to whatever it is that we do. The English crown was similar in that facet, and that Queen Elizabeth II had acceded to a throne whose history is based on a lot of carnage, a lot of bad decisions, and pretty much establishing and exerting dominance over everyone else that they could. Britain has attempted to colonize India. They've done it before. That's where Mahatma Gandhi came in. The British have tried to exert dominance over Africa, and this is who we're talking about today in regards to Africans' frustration, agitation, as well as hatred towards the Queen and the British crown. The British have attempted to do many other things, as well as the other European countries, as it comes to, trying to gain land over over African territory. You can refer to the 1884 Berlin Conference, and that will give you a lot of understanding as to what transpired and how many European countries were involved in trying to play this game of tag as to who can get what land in Africa if they can colonize it, right? Majority of the European countries that we know of participated in that in history. As we could see with Queen Elizabeth II, she stepped into a situation where obviously she had to play a role where she not only was ruling her country, but she was also going to assert dominance over countries that were colonized. So what countries in Africa in particular were colonized? Well, 30% of Nigeria was colonized by a previous king, and basically, which was about 30%, which led to the Biafra Wars, in which the Nigerians were rebelling against them because they did not agree with the colonization of their people. And that resulted to over 1 million Africans, or 1 million people dying as a result of famine and so on and so forth, because that Nigerians did not comply with the British authority over there. Another country that was colonized by Kenya at one point that was colonized by the British at one point was Kenya. And that led to the Mau Mau Rebellion. And so that lasted for a while, and many people died there as well. Mind you, the Biafra Wars lasted for about, I think, 3 years. And it was a hard, and they lost, unfortunately. But eventually, the Nigerians would get their country back, and they would achieve dominance, not dominance, independence for about 3 to 4 decades. So their independence is still relatively new, if you will, right? It's still relatively fresh. These countries have been through a lot, and colonization did not do them all as good. While some would argue that colonization might have brought about good things, colonization for the most part overwhelmingly brought about the bad as well. And what we seem to lack often when we have these conversations is that we often like to talk about the good that comes with colonization, but there is like negative implications to this as well, right? And what do I mean by this? Queen Elizabeth II's ancestors did a lot of ugly, heinous, vehement things to minorities, or shall I say to the African people, right? As well as other nations as well outside of Africa. And when you're trying to assert dominance over people, it comes at a cost. It comes with the cost of ending people's lives. It comes at the cost of disparaging cultures. It comes at the cost of denouncing everything traditional, original, and indigenous to your people. It comes at a cost to basically trading your roots for new roots that are established by an imperialistic authority, right? Now, us in the modern age, we may not have a problem looking at this from our own perspectives because we are the current descendants of some of these people from way back when. We will never understand how some of them felt because we have yet to experience what all of them have experienced, from slavery to famine to starvation to oppression, you name it. It's hard to gauge how one would feel about a queen's death whose people, whose ancestors reaped benefits and destroyed a lot of what had transpired over the African people and their land and their culture, you name it. You can't go over to Nigeria and tell them that it's okay, that you all should mourn the queen because she's the Queen of England. Everybody doesn't have to like or love the queen because she's a queen. It does not matter. She's a person at the end of the day. She has the liability to do right and wrong, right and or wrong. In some instances, she got involved in something that just was not agreeable to the African people, and they cannot agree with the situation. How this whole situation even started to transpire about Africans resenting Queen Elizabeth II in the first place was due to the fact that a Nigerian professor by the name of Uju Anya posted a tweet about how she was actually glad that this woman passed away. Now, some majority of people will obviously find that to be tasteless, distasteful, and disgusting, because to some people, it's like, how can you not respect the dead? Now, me personally, I would not have posted a tweet about the woman while she's dead. If I felt some type of way about it, hypothetically, in my case, if I was in that situation and I knew my people had some type of direct contact with her in a negative fashion, I probably would have expressed it how I hated her, probably while she was alive. It would have had more emphasis, right? If I genuinely felt some concern about this lady, or if I felt like she just really didn't matter to me. Now, mind you, yes, I'm doing well. Things are going well for me. But if my feelings are truly like churning inside, and I feel like this queen did things to my ancestors I can't appreciate, least I can let it be known on Front Street while she's living. Hey, this is how I feel. And I'm going to just leave it where it's at, right? I don't want to pretend. To wait until someone dies to then express how you feel, I think it's a bit cowardice, if you ask me. You don't wait till people die to start telling them how you feel, whether if it's good or bad indifference. I think you should give them their flowers while they're living. It makes no sense to wait until a person dies and now you got all these built up feelings just releasing into the ether when you could have been told this person how you felt while they were living. Hell, she may not have even got that tweet if she was living in the first place. But the British people that are surrounding her, they are on Twitter. They know what it's like. They know the information they're getting. They're not that devolved or that primitive that they can't receive information on the internet. But that's neither here nor there. I understand the African resentment as well as their hatred towards her, specifically towards her ancestors, right? Because the British crown did shed blood as a result of trying to assert their dominance over people like the typical colonizers would do, right? You don't most people would not colonize without some sort of without some type of strong effort or coercion to try to get people to follow their rules and their way of thinking and their way of doing things, right? The whole entire purpose of colonization is not solely about the color of the skin. That's not what it's about at all. Color of the skin comes later when you want to condition people to focus solely on the value of their skin color and make them feel inferior to you, like how colonization has affected the way black people's mindsets work today about how they feel about white people, that they blame white people for everything, that white people have gave them so many disadvantages they can't advance forward. That's where all this conversation is coming from. How black people fight so hard to try to make everybody value their skin color because there was a group of people that at one time made their skin color the biggest target on their backs once upon a time, right? Right now, I don't think it's as bad as it was back then, but some people will beg to differ in argument, and that's fine. I welcome the dissension on that. That's fine. But it cannot be denied that we do all have some type of complex as far as being self-aware about the color of our skin and how we feel about it because of how one race of people made us feel once upon a time. You know, labeling us as monkeys, the N-word, the P word. It's so many of them, right? And ultimately colonization causes all of these different things. Now, on the other hand, I also hear people make the argument, black and white, that colonization has brought about good things, right? And so I can hear it through you all right now, like, how is colonization a great thing? How is colonization good when you got all of these bad things that have happened? As you all know, when you do let's be objective about this. Historically speaking, when people go to war, they're about winning. And as the saying goes, to the winner goes the spoils. Whether if you believe that war is right or wrong in difference, you cannot deny that that's what it does. Black or white, every country has went to war with one another. Somebody has the strong has always won over the weak. And they use military strategy, military tactics in order to get what they want out of the situation. It is never ideal for colonization to be something that the losing side wants. Nobody wants that. But when the winner wins, they take over. For instance, when the Vikings took over England, do you think that the English wanted the Vikings to colonize their lands and start making settlements and taking away their treasures, their churches, and all like that? Now, some Vikings chose otherwise to adapt to English culture and just simply, be both Danish as well as English. But for the most part, for the die-hard Vikings, they wanted to come over and basically spill guts and glory, get everybody that they wanted, the prisoners or captives of war, make people convert to them or, try to establish dominance. That happens. And they bring everything about themselves over to that country because they want to, let's say, assimilate that culture along with their own. And that's for the most part what has happened all throughout history. Even if you want to go back as far as Africa, when Egypt was colonizing people, everybody around them was sharing Egyptian culture. It's the same thing. When Babylon, or which is modern day Ethiopia, was taking over different lands, they were doing the same thing. Colonization from the positive aspects just brings the positive aspects of that culture to your culture, right? So there's a lot of things that we were exposed to as Africans, or, you know, our ancestors were exposed to as Africans, they did not have in their culture. So when this culture comes along, they bring about certain changes. They put solutions according to what they believe is problematic in your society or your traditions or your beliefs. It's relative at best. It's a relative understanding of how colonization works when it comes to you, right? It brings about schooling, education, different types of foods. It puts you in a mindset to want to be integrative with everyone else. But that did not happen when it came to the African people. They were coerced into having to know the other side, these foreigners, their gods, their politics, their beliefs. All of this stuff is foreign. So naturally, colonization is not, it's not a good thing per se, right? But some will argue that from an extreme radical standpoint, it could be a good thing, in which in some instances, perhaps. But it is never ideal for Africans to feel that if they got displaced or uprooted from their homeland, that they would want to get rid of what they had, which is what colonization does. It takes away from parts of who you are. Like with us in America, the USA, black people that were descendants of slaves. My grandfather came from West Africa. He was a prince in West Africa, right? And yes, he was from royalty. He was actually the one that relayed to my 3 times great grand uncle. He related to him, and my grand uncle related to our family that he was a royal descendant from Africa. But nonetheless, it was never ideal for him to want to be sold as a slave and been brought here to America. That's not ideal for an African, you know, or for anybody that gets displaced from their home. Nobody wants to be sold as a slave for the betterment of something else in another country. If you want to go to another country, which is common for immigrants to do, if they want to escape from like famine or a massacre, you name it, in their own home country, naturally they may want to come to they want to go to a different country where they can do better for themselves, but consensually, not, oh, I'm just gonna fuck you away. I'm gonna fuck your rights and everything else away, including your humanity, and make you feel like straight up property. Sorry to put it in that context for YouTube, but honestly, when it comes to Queen Elizabeth II, it's understandable that these Africans would resent her the way that they do. But I also want to say this, people, as far as monarchy is concerned and having power, ruling over a throne, you name it, right? No country, and let's be honest about this, none, not even in Africa, no country where you have a man or woman in power has the throne ever not shed blood. Being a king, a queen, a viscount, a count, a consort, you name it. When you are of a certain power, you will make some foul decisions. Some that may even make some that your home country may even consider inhumane, because power can either resonate good in various countries or it can resonate evil in various countries. And depending how you choose to rule will determine what the throne will be like for the country that you're ruling over. The Queen is no exception. She screwed up. Her mother, Queen Elizabeth the First, screwed up. And why I say that is because, like, another issue was that Queen Elizabeth the First actually endorsed the slave trade, right, concerning Africans. That was another issue that African people had, right? And so you have all of these things that the British have done, that they have to lay, that they made a bed that is bloody and they have to lay on it. Being a colonizer, it's not a perfect position to be in, because it comes with all of those sins that they've and atrocities they've committed against everyone else. That's something they have to live with, in spite of having a title known as royalty. Being royal, it's a great thing if you know what you're doing, if you can live with your decisions, if that's what you want to do, and that's how you wish to establish your greatness, that's fine. But you cannot expect the entire world to love you because of your title. Your title carries weight. That's why actions mean a lot louder than words or labels. Because all of the things that you do, it accumulates, it accrues like interest. And people are going to want you to pay up after you do it. Now, mind you, it's understandable that everyone is going to be angry about that. They're going to be angry at Britain because of all the things that they've done, because of all the things they've stolen from Africa. Like during the Mau Mau Rebellion, they stole, the British stole a big diamond that I think that they still hold in Britain today. And now in modern times, because Prince Charles has now claimed the throne, now because times are different, the people are asking him to return all of the things that the British crown took. Now, that's not going to be guaranteed. That may not even happen. But because we live in a liberal society, we don't really give too much of a shit anymore about royalty and status and all these different things. We just want you to do what we ask you to do. That's the mindset that a lot of these young people have today. But at the end of the day, monarchy, oligarchy, communism, socialism, capitalism, theocratic governments, you name it. Understand this. Nobody's throne is without skeletons. Every single one of them, including in Africa. Every single one of them. And if you think that she's the only one that needs to pay reparations, oh, y'all got a lot of people to look up. Y'all got a lot of people to deal with. Because we got to start from the beginning of the beginning, if you want to talk about reparations, outside of Queen Elizabeth II. Which leads me into my last thought process, or last topic, which is regarding reparations. Now, I understand that some people black people have been asking for reparations for years. That's nothing new, right? Even over here, it's the same way. Everybody wants reparations, 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 reparations. And which, me personally, I don't have a problem with it, because reparations has been given before in the United States. This is not avant-garde. They've given reparations to the Jew. I believe reparations was given to the Jews. Reparations was arbitrarily given to the people of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Reparations is given to anybody. Pearl Harbor. I guess that's what I really meant to say. The United States gave reparations to Pearl Harbor. It's nothing new that people give compensation for the damage that had been done in previous times. But for some reason, when it comes to Africans, well, it's an entirely different story, and everybody has these arguments of why they either can or can't. But at the end of the day, it's not hard to come up with an arbitrary number to give people. It's just much more complicated to give people reparations, because our ethnicities are different, and then you got to consider that African Americans are extremely diverse. Not to mention, some people will try to claim to have descendants who were slaves, who really were not slaves. All kinds of different stuff will happen, right? There's all these different complications. But Don Lemon from CNN had actually tried to make an argument for reparations to the U.S. British Royal Scholar. And she drew up a good point, and she said, well, Don, you're right. I believe that, we should give reparations to whomever has been damaged. She said, however, if you're going to do that, you have to start from the very beginning. You can't go to just Britain, right? It starts with the people who were complicit of doing the trade in the first place. As much as people want to talk about slavery, you have to start with the very people who initiated and authorized it in the first place for these people to come into your homeland and try to take who you love, which is the African people, in which she was not lying. Very true. The African chieftains over there decided that they wanted to sell our people off. And yet again, this will be something that'll go in one ear and come out the other, because like we mostly like to do as black folks is we like to ignore the fact that our people did commit these atrocities as well, but we like to place the blame on just the Europeans. And it wasn't just the Europeans. It was our African forefathers over there that did that. But we never want to put them on Front Street. We just put it on Front Street for those who are white, because our ancestors were slaves to them and served them. But who started the trade? Who sold them to these people for them to serve them? Not to mention some of our very people who were slaves in America, there were slaves in Africa. And some of the traders would get people to take out the strong warriors amongst the African tribes to weaken the tribe so that they could go and kidnap the slaves, put them in cages, and leave them on the shores of Africa for the navalmen of Britain and even Americans to come over and take the slaves and do trade with them, with the African chieftains. But that's a conversation we don't want to have. Because, see, it's hard to actually believe your own people are capable of that type of violence and hatred. So you got to start from home. If you want reparations that badly, go to Africa. But you know why we won't do that? Because you know Africa is not going to do that. You know your own people ain't going to do that for you. And they got the same skin color as you. So, point being, you got to play this fair. Reparations is fine. But start with the people who did it first. And that's your own kind, which is our kryptonite, because we don't ever want to admit that our people do these things. Some of us will, but most of us won't. Our ostrich game is pretty strong when it comes to stuff like that. But that's neither here nor there. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Malik Washington. I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a good day or good night wherever you reside, and I thank you for listening if you got this far. Stay tuned until the next episode. Peace.